welcome to this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through the industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have Samantha Bedford, digital expert and founder of Pico Digital Marketing. Welcome to the show, Samantha.
Hi, AJ. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thank you indeed for joining us. And we'll be talking about so many things. Marketing, digital marketing. This is a big space which is very dynamic.
Very big space.
Yes, very big space and changing very, very fast.
Yes.
But my first question, Samantha, is that how I'm meeting such a big risk taker, positive risk taker. There was a time you moved from South Africa to Denver, and then from US to Scotland. And
I know, pretty crazy, right?
Right.
Yes.
How do you manage? There's no harm, but you do a lot of things online. How do you keep so much of trust in these times when mistrust is increasing? Forget about online, even your next door neighbor. How do you do that? How do you create trust online? How do you live a life of trust online? And how do you manage to still live with trust offline? I want to start from this question because it includes online and offline, which is such a difficult thing to manage in today's life.
Yeah, wow, that's a pretty big question. So I guess, when I moved from, South Africa to Denver, Colorado, it's maybe a little different, I wasn't married at the time. I didn't have a kid. And, in South Africa, it was a third world country, right? Still is. And, it's one of those situations where I had the opportunity to get into the digital space. And a wonderful man named Andrew Beckman gave me an opportunity. And I, moved there. I knew one person, which was him. It was a little crazy. Certainly very different. They have 4 seasons. South Africa is nice and warm most of the time, a bit of rain here and there. But now I've got like snow. It's just a little different. But trust in the internet back then was, it was more, there wasn't reviews as much, there just wasn't as much information, right? As there is out there on the internet today. So it was a very, very different experience. But going back to this recent one, you can imagine, I mean, everybody's on the internet. We're in a mobile first environment. We're now talking about, conversational AI and, like there's a big difference from back then to where we are today. And I don't know, I feel like being in the digital space, if I'm going to sit there and preach to people about how important it is to, embrace and advertise the digital environments, I need to stand by it and I need to live it, eat, sleep, breathe it kind of thing. So, so I took it as a very, very big challenge, was to basically uplift my entire life in Denver, Colorado, and not just move myself this time, but move my husband and my child and 3 dogs. So it was quite a change. And, I relied on the internet for all of it. We were doing research about, Scotland. We were doing research about locations. We're looking at a lot of like social media. What are people writing on social media? What are people when they go to Scotland? What do they like about Scotland? Like things like that. There was just so many things that's available online. And, we did a ton of research on schools for my kid. I mean, it was one of those situations where we had organized our dogs online for them to fly over. We organized everything, even my house. I bought my house online.
Right. And you saw the house only after you got
I
the key.
saw the house the day I got the keys for it. I'd already paid for it. So little bit of a risk taker, but I think just using all of the modern technologies that we have today, I don't know. I mean, it's less risky, in my opinion, than it ever was, right? Like, because you can gather so much information and data points from everybody from all over the globe. You're not limited to like, oh, I know one person in Denver, Colorado, right? Like back then, like now it's I've got strangers telling me what it's like to travel around Scotland, and hundreds and thousands of them being able to tell me what it's like. And there's groups on Facebook about people who have left the United States and moved to Scotland, and you can ask them, what was your challenges? What were like the things that, took you by surprise, were unexpected, and it's just, that we're a global community. And I think a lot of people have challenges with that, obviously. I am fortunate where, moving to like, certain locations is maybe easier for me from a job standpoint, because all I need is good internet and my computer, and I can work from anywhere. So I'm very blessed on that standpoint. But I'm also, like, I mean, you take my son now, and my son's got these opportunities he wouldn't have had. He's just gone to Spain. He's heading out to Germany. Like, these are opportunities he just wouldn't have had previously. And I'm thrilled with the fact that we made this decision. I regret nothing about it. And love Scotland. And I also think that, being in the digital space itself, it's one of those things where it's like, I can honestly, truly say that I eat, sleep, and breathe it, right? Like literally moved a family, bought a house, all of that good stuff, and trusted the internet. And by having that experience, I'm able to now go back and apply that to my clients, right? And apply it to their campaigns and, look at it from the perspective of someone who's literally moved a continent, with a husband, kid, and 3 dogs. So,
Right.
yeah, so crazy,
Right.
right?
Not crazy. You have done well, and it has gone well for you.
And
And
how?
as you said, but a lot of people, even if their kids are on the internet for beyond certain hours, or when they are not able to monitor them, they lose their sleep. How do they manage to do this, to keep the trust, as well as, also be cautious about the difficulties internet can throw, uh, which we keep on hearing stories about? So what is it? You are a human, you will certainly have those things. Are there certain things that businesses, individuals, there are so many freelancers today, they always worry about everything, about data, about their own privacy, and also about online money, transactions.
Yep.
It's how do they do that? Even in business transactions, if you have money, you can afford to lose some money. But then people are many people are do not have that much of money. Payments keep on coming from clients from outside. How do they maintain that level of, say, confidentiality for themselves, for their clients, as well as are able to secure themselves?
Tough question, because, there's a part of me which is honestly, I think with the internet, there's always a part of me, the back of my head, which is like, you know what, there really isn't such a thing as privacy. There is no such thing as confidentiality. I mean, there's encryption, obviously, and there's a load of other things that are happening out there. But, either you're going to embrace technology And with anything, technology is going to have its challenges. There's always going to be, breaches, and things like that. Or you're going to, put money in your sock drawer. It's a bit of a, like, I'm one of those who have just embraced it, on behalf of my clients, though. Obviously, I work with them, from a financial standpoint. Obviously, they've got money, right? And they want to advertise on, say, Google or Facebook or LinkedIn or, display programmatic, that kind of thing. And whenever they're, advertising, there's a lot of data that we have to support, the decisions that we make. And for us, I mean, every dollar counts for our clients. So, we're doing everything we can. We're negotiating with publishers. We're chatting with Google if we feel like there's click fraud happening on the campaigns. I mean, it's basically just about being on top of the industry and what's happening in the industry. But as I say, on a personal level, you've sort of just got to let it go. It's almost like, your kid somewhere down the line, you've got to let your kid fall down the stairs, and make those mistakes, so that they can learn from it. But I feel as well that technology just, the more challenges that technology has, the more technology embraces it and adapts and changes and, that kind of thing. I'm just a full believer in the internet, but I don't, as I say, fully believe in privacy much anymore. But I can tell you that I trust the internet more than I would someone walking down the street.
Right, right. Got your point. So now let's look at from the business point of view, and especially small businesses point of view.
Yeah.
Should they just keep their trust with Google, or they should start looking at other search engines, maybe Bing? Will you start looking at that? Because we are almost there when these will be competing with a lot of AI integration into searches. Because I'll tell you one example. Just today itself, I was looking at the KJ Masterclass live itself. I thought, let me just try a few things. Earlier, you almost forgot about Bing. And let's see what results it's going to throw. And I was surprised that Bing was throwing many results which never came on Google. And I thought it's a good place. Means I should be looking at much more information on Bing for whatever it has to offer even now, whether it's integrated or not. So how do you look at this landscape in straightforward way? Is Google still the best place to be seen and heard? Is it the place to be the only place? How do you look at it as the owner of a company dealing with so many clients? What would you advise them? What do you say?
Yeah, I mean, so from my standpoint, I'm looking at it from the client spend, right? So, and the platforms themselves. So not necessarily the search results pages, right? So Google's platform is obviously a lot more evolved than Microsoft Ads, which is Bing, right? And there are challenges. There's times when I'm looking in Microsoft Ads and the platform is saying for this client that we've generated, 20 conversions or leads, whatever we're tracking as an action. And it's saying that we've got that, but my client's not seeing those conversions. So you have to question whether the technology is, why there's this discrepancy, should I say, between what the client is seeing versus what the technology is seeing, or the platform is seeing. And you still have issues like that. You're always going to have some level of discrepancy between systems because they all record things differently. But at the same time, it needs to be acceptable. You can't have, 20 conversions in, Microsoft Ads and the client's not seeing any of them. So those are things. But outside of the platform itself, I think the important thing to remember is Google's been brought up as a search engine. That is what Google is. That is their bread and butter. They're a search engine. Microsoft is, tons of things. It's news. it's
Right.
the stock markets, it's Zillow, it's Bing's ads are like all over great content, websites. So I think it's also important to remember that as if you've only got a small budget, let's go with Google, because Google's the biggest search engine, number one, right? And number two, their actual platform on the back end is more aligned, or at least what we've seen is more aligned with, what the client's seeing. Okay. So from a trust standpoint, from a spend standpoint, definitely. If a client has more budget, absolutely, we would recommend going on Microsoft ads. But once again, you've got to keep an eye on that technology, right? And you've got to make sure, like, if there is a discrepancy between what they're showing as conversions and what the client's seeing, why? You're going to have to investigate that. It's going to be amazing in the future, because I feel like, Google's got the monopoly right now, right? But then you've got, all these, conversational AI products that are coming out right now. Microsoft's just made a massive investment in it. So I'm interested to see what's going to happen over the next, well, not long. Things change pretty quickly. As soon as Microsoft announced that, all of a sudden Google's, announced bots. So there's a lot going on. And I think it's going to be an interesting couple of years to see how, if Microsoft can maybe make up some of that and actually give Google a run for their money. Because right now, I mean, nobody's really giving Google any competition. And I think competition is very healthy.
Right. So how should one look at even now? Because it's too early to say about Microsoft. We don't know how this integration will happen. What exactly will happen, say 2 months, 5 months down the line. But how does a small business prepare for it? Should they just wait, be on Google till the time, or should they start also looking at a place like Microsoft? Because see, the Microsoft facility they're also using for Yahoo. Also, Yahoo is also using the same thing that Bing has to offer. It's like your twin brothers, and then we don't have much access to other search engines that like the Russia one and the Chinese one. But there is this thing called DuckDuckGo. I think these are some of the places which. So how do I plan as a small business? I will find that, okay, Microsoft is important, Bing is important, and I need to focus on that, but I don't know how to go about it. And then it will be, what would your advice be? Should they start learning about how Microsoft Bing works? Should they start gathering numbers for whom to contact if they need to? What the system is, how that system operates? What is your advice looking forward?
Yeah, so I think because Microsoft has embraced the fact, to be honest, that they are way behind Google, right, with regards to market share. So they've made it extremely easy, to the degree that, you can basically set up your account in Google, right? So you go into the Google ad system, set up all of your accounts, your keywords, your ad copy, everything. Normally what I would recommend is set it up in Google, run it in Google for at least, 2 weeks, just to sort of weed out any of those keywords that are like, oh, that shouldn't slip in there, that kind of thing, or match up to something. But once you've done that and you've started to get a feel of how the campaign is performing in Google, you can literally go in, create a Microsoft Ads account, and literally click one button, and you can export everything from Google into Microsoft Ads.
Okay.
And it's already had like that 2 weeks of sort of pre-optimization that's been happening in Google. I think the bigger challenge you have is what budget you have, So, I mean, if you haven't got the budget to even have good exposure in Google, right, where you're in a situation where you're not even learning fast because you don't have the budget to get like enough statistical relevance, then why would you go and put more money into another engine? Because now you're spreading yourself spreading yourself thin, and you're learning less. and and it's just taking longer to gather any evidence of like this keyword's working or this ad copy is working, or this geography is working better than this geography, and all of the things that you need to be taking into account when optimizing your campaigns. So that's the thing there. I always, if you can, and as I say, it all depends on the clients and the budgets. But in a picture perfect world, the client has a solid budget for, say, Google, right? We're doing a great job on Google. Google's sort of pulling in that sort of, that bread and butter for them. It's optimized, it's bringing in the leads or the sales, that kind of thing. And then I always like to try and put some budget aside for testing purposes.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that testing budget could be on Microsoft Ads. It could be on Facebook. It could be TikTok. It could, anywhere. Obviously, you've got to see what the client's goals are and where their audiences are. But I think at the end of the day, I mean, the biggest thing is to obviously optimize what we know is working, and then, put back and test out other platforms. You should always be testing, always. I always say to my clients, if the campaign looks the same as what I showed you 90 days ago, fire me. Because I'm not doing a good job. It shouldn't look anything the same. And because it has to constantly evolve. Because, as much as we're on about these other platforms, to your point, AJ, you just mentioned it. You went to Bing and you went and searched for yourself. Not many people do that.
Yes, I searched for the KJ Masterclass Live.
Yeah.
Why I found this, and I did not have time to look at more, but it gave me that feeling that I should use and find more results on Bing, because I felt like, for example, this show also goes on Substack, but on Google it hardly shows Substack at the top or maybe down sometimes. But there, it also showed me that the other sites which were taking my podcast from Substack. So you see, it's such a huge extension. In fact, I got almost a feeling that is it that Google or its algorithm is playing down a lot of content for whatever reasons. One is that is one. My question to you is that, is it actually happening? Is my feeling correct about it? That is where you will always run an additional search on a place like Bing. Is it going to be more going forward? And another question is, because they are so interrelated, is that, as you said, Google is a search engine. That's their bread and butter. But Microsoft is in so many things. Today they have got ChatGPT integrated. So suddenly we talk about it. Why is it that they were not so 100% focused on just Bing itself? And suppose tomorrow, if Bard is able to beat that man called Chat, then what happens? Microsoft goes back to the drawing room and does nothing?
Well,
how can I be sure about what it is doing? And all that effort goes in vain. It's like building a huge fan base on Twitter or any other place, or even on YouTube, and suddenly find that something else has happened and things have changed and you are lost. Before a business, it matters a lot, and for a small business, it is huge. They are left without an existence. Online identity is gone. How do you look at this whole stuff?
I think the other thing is that, just making sure you've got the basics in place, right? So you're on about Microsoft, right? And you're on about Bing, Twitter, all of that stuff. Like, I mean, do you have Google Analytics set up, or any analytics platform? Most people gravitate to Google Analytics, right? So, I mean, the next place you look at is going into Google Analytics. And it's like, well, how much traffic do I actually get from Microsoft? How much do I organically get on a monthly basis? And then if you've set up your Google Analytics correctly, you also will be able to track the actions. So how many people actually went to a thank you page? Or in your case, how many people actually viewed the video, the content? And, and you're able to track all of these things. So now you're in a situation where it's like, if I'm looking at your Google Analytics and your Google Analytics is saying to me, whoa, Microsoft's actually pretty damn awesome, for you specifically, because as much as it's great to have these conversations, and there are some things that, you have to go in with some sort of like cookie cutter approach. But at the same time, Google Analytics does give you some insight into, where your traffic is coming from to your website and how are they interacting, with your site and what are they doing on your site, so that then you can turn around. And if I see on your website that we're getting some really great traffic coming through from Microsoft and we're getting some really good conversions from an organic standpoint, right? Then, yeah, the next step will be, let's get you up on Microsoft Ads. Let's get you up on Bing, and get you out there. I think the other thing as well is just going back to things. Microsoft has always been great at content, right? Like, I mean, you're looking at MSN, you're looking at, like you said, Yahoo, you're looking at Zillow, you're looking at Yahoo Stock.
Sorry to interrupt, Samantha, but too much of content. That's why I don't go to that page. The page is so crowded. That is the reason you get just overwhelmed. At least in my case, it has always been the case, though I have always liked the content. But you see, Google has that so much of white space. So I like it. Then you decide where you want
Yes,
to.
it's clean. Yeah. Yeah. And I think that Google's done a great job of measuring that, right? It all goes down to measurement. And they've done eye tracking studies. They've done everything. And they're constantly evolving their pages, and it's not, I always like to think of it as like Amazon as well. Like, Amazon doesn't reinvent the wheel. Amazon tweaks. And that's exactly what Google does, right? They're tweaking. They're using their data to make changes all the time and improve things. And that's exactly what, as a business owner, you need to be doing for yourself as well, else you're not going to keep up.
Right. So is that going forward, is this change, correct me if I'm asking the right way, is that in a website, now I'm not a web designer.
Yep.
I recently just last 6 months or 7 months back, I learned a bit about, Elementor, about website, Bluehost and WordPress. And there I put in those Google Analytics. I could just through Elementor, I could put it.
Yeah, just put the
Is
code
it
in.
possible that I can also put Bing down there, or now there will be that together along with Google Analytics, you will also bring in the Bing Analytics or other thing? Is it possible, or is it now going to be much more common going forward? Earlier it was just Google. You get all the data about Google through that SEO or whatever, and even the analytics. But now it will be much more of Bing integrated into these WordPress websites or any other place, even Wix and any other place.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's moving more on towards like the SEO side of things. So, algorithmics, or, all of the organic side. Bing has their own algorithm. Google has their own algorithm. AOL has their own, like everybody has their own algorithms, and it's all their own secret sauce. Let's put it that way. But I think usually if you're following Google and you're following YouTube as well, because YouTube's an important one to, video specifically to take into consideration, particularly as you're very aware with podcasts. There's lots of things you can do from an optimization standpoint to make sure that you do, meet with all of the algorithmic needs to show up higher on the Google search engines. Or Microsoft, any search engine, to be honest. With regards to your question about analytics, Google Analytics does pull referral data from everywhere. So, it's not just Google. It's pulling in information from absolutely everywhere, which is why, if you haven't got Google Analytics in place, do it today. Right. Waste no more time. Start collecting some information, because that can really help you prioritize where you maybe want to invest some money to increase your exposure, or where you maybe want to start prioritizing some of your organic optimizations as well.
Okay. So let me ask it this way for small businesses. What are the tools that they should keep in their toolbox for running their day-to-day business as of
Yeah. So Google Analytics, number one, definitely. I would also say the Google Tag Manager. So I'm sure everybody's aware it's a mobile first world right now. Well, it will be for who knows what it's going to look like in the future. But with it being mobile first, Google Tag Manager enables you to minimize the amount of code that you have to put on your website, which is good because it speeds that up from a mobile standpoint. And then one of the other big ones would be Google Search Console. Search Console's very important. That's basically your platform that'll tell you how you're doing, how Google sees you from an algorithmic standpoint and the changes you need to be making. So that's another one that I would definitely take a look at. I would say those are sort of like the really like bread and butter tools. Microsoft also has their own, search console as well. So they have that as well. So you can look at it from their algorithm, not just Google's. But as I say, sometimes time is of the essence and you don't have a lot of time. So trying to keep it down to, some core tools. And I think the other big thing that most people don't do, and as I say, AJ, you spoke about it earlier, is actually go out, go and take a look, go and search on the keywords you think you should be advertising on. What are, who's bidding on that same keyword? Who's showing up? Are they a competitor? If they are a direct competitor, what are they saying? Are they saying something different to you? Is it the same? How do you differentiate yourself out there? Because to your point, like the search results page, you're not the only one on it. There's a lot of competition happening on that page. So, and a lot of people just don't go back. I call it back to basics. You just don't go back to basics. And everybody's sitting there in their platforms and they're changing their keywords and they're changing their ad copy and they're doing this. But, just going and taking a look and seeing, where your ad shows up, what position are you in, and, who's ahead of you is absolutely crucial. And I think just between those four things, that will give you a really solid understanding of what's going on your website, but also what's happening in the marketplace and also how you could, adapt and adjust, and that's just keeping it simple. There's like thousands of other tools out there, but just trying to keep it simple. That's your best one. Another tool, which is also free, which I, use for some of my clients is Google's Data Studio. It's a great reporting tool.
Google Data Studio.
Google's Data Studio. Yeah. So it's nice. It's free. Same with, like Google Tag Manager, Google Data Studio, Google Search Console. All of those tools are free, and Google Analytics. So, I always think that's where you need to start as a small business because, money's tight when you're starting up a new company, right? And these are great tools that you have at your disposal that are free, that can help you decide where you should be advertising and how to prioritize where you want to put those dollars to try and get yourself some exposure out there in the marketplace. And then there's loads of other tools which will cost you a lot more money.
Right. Now, Samantha, let's look at the all business of the Bard and the Chat GPT and hundreds of AI tools, copywriting tools that you just don't know how to deal. Almost every second day you come across something new, some new copywriting tool that has come up, and whether you want to try that free. In this whole system, everybody is talking about that, it can free your time. And I was reading about you say we should not look at it that way. AI machines will perhaps not save marketers' time when it comes to creating a copy. Help us understand why you think so.
Yeah.
And then I'll ask further questions on that.
Well, and I think it's a catch-22 situation, right? Obviously that can save you time. Okay. That's hands down. That's why they're there. That's why people pay for it. Okay. But an AI is not human yet. Like it's still not there. right? And until we get to that stage, it's almost like going back 10 years ago when, automated bidding came out, right? Like, sure, you could use automated bidding, but there was loads of challenges with it. It hasn't gone through maturity yet. And I think that's the challenge that we have right now. And, if you look at anything, you want to be spoken to you, not here's an automated piece of information, that I'm just going to plonk out there to everybody. You want to feel like the content that I'm putting together is speaking to you. And I feel like that is where, AI can fall short right now. I mean, Bot just did a test and failed it, right? So, so there's a lot of like things out there where I'm not saying don't use it necessarily. You can certainly use an AI tool to sort of like develop like a draft one, right? But then I feel like as an individual, it all depends on you, right? So for me personally, yeah, sure, maybe use a tool to develop draft one and then you tweak it, right? You tweak it because you know your audience. AI doesn't. Okay. You know your customer. So you go in and you can tweak it. So at least you've got a draft, you've got something to work from. But then there's a lot of times when it's like, by the time you've just gone through this and reread it and made all the, you may as well have written it yourself. So, it's really up to each individual marketer. But for me, personalization and absolutely speaking to each of your customers individually, I mean, AI can't do that. So it can give you a leg up, but it can't do it. And I just feel like AI right now, yes, it's saving you time, and yes, it's making sure you just pound out a ton of content, but is it content that someone's going to read, right? Is it content that someone's going to actually be like, wow, that blew me away? Is it content that someone's going to end up, going to your YouTube channel, for example, and subscribing? And also the other piece of it is, is the content written in such a way that Google's going to pick it up with their algorithms? What keywords is it going to pick it up for? There's so much that goes into content itself that I personally feel like an AI is not there yet. Can it get there? Absolutely. The way we're going, absolutely. Are we there yet? No. It's the same as when you go to your bank, right? And you're on with your bank and that little chat bot comes up. And you're like, by the end of it, you're like, geez, I should have just picked up the phone and spoken to someone. Same thing, same concept.
Right. I get your point. But you see, the thing is that even if agencies or individuals, whoever are managing accounts for companies, for clients, they may say that we won't use AI, we will create human generated content.
Yep.
But the temptation is always to be quick to save time.
Always.
Isn't it? And then the content may not be that good because you have to communicate to your potential customer, to your customers. That human connection can only be created by human created words who can represent that feeling.
Well, I mean, you're doing it, right? You've got your podcast. I mean, and people love it because they see you. It's organic. We're doing this live. It's not like I'm sitting here, like reading off a paper and like, giving you responses. Like, and people like that. They like that human interaction and they like seeing it. And, AI can't do it, and I think that's also why there's such a proliferation of podcasts, right? Because that's what people want to see. That's how people want to interact. I don't want to sit there and read like, a 10-page document, that's just, I'd rather listen to a podcast, and hear some opinions, that kind of thing. And AI can't do that. AI can't do what we're doing today.
Right. But it's going to impact the brand image.
It will impact the brand image.
How do they take care of this? So you see the situation. What has happened is OpenAI has created ChatGPT. Then they have also created another thing which says you can find out whether the content has been is AI generated content. So you create the chat GPT content into that thing and you see whether it can find out how much percentage. Google says, I will not allow AI generated content. And now it has got barred. So the bird and the chatting man, they will keep on fighting. The whole internet, you see, between Bing and Google, it will be almost like 90% of that, including Google. You can add Yahoo. You can also add, DuckDuckGo.
Yep.
Everywhere it will be all, fighting amongst them, whether they will be AI generated content and another machine which will find out whether it is AI generated or not. And it will be such a confusing state for an individual. They would rather say it's better that I write myself because there is no other way.
Well, and the
How do
other
you
thing
look
as well is like how much content. Like, I mean, the other thing is like, yeah, chat, AI generated content. Sure, I can go out there and create tons of content and just throw it up there, and and that's great. But at the same time, to your point, it's maybe not on brand. It's not optimized to the engines, and it's certainly one of the things that we really push at Pico is the fact that we are talking about heartbeats, not data,
Right.
not
Right.
AI. The people that we're talking about, they're heartbeats. They are people, and they want to be spoken to as a heartbeat, as a human being, not AI generated content. And, we're not there. And I think with regards to, the, OpenAI and bot and all of this stuff, I mean, it reminds me of the day when, Google would turn around. Oh my gosh, all the engines would turn around and it's like, oh, you've got to have, your website ready for mobile. You've got to have it. This is the year for mobile. This is the year for
Right.
mobile. No, didn't happen. Because it's not about what we think. It's not about anything that we think. It's about the heartbeats. It's about the people who are interacting. And if they're not adapting to mobile, then how can, we can be ready for it, which we should be. But I mean, if they're not using mobile as, expected, and mobile is going to overtake desktop, then, we just need to be ready for it. That's all we can do. But, for me, it goes at the speed of the people. It goes to the speed of the audience, who you are talking to. And that's more important, to, at least from my standpoint, that's the most important thing that you can do is remember that you're talking to a human being, and that human being wants to be spoken to and respected.
Right. We talked about brands, we talked about the other side. How you as an agency owner, how do you look at things? Means, is it going to, are you going to make any changes to the way you do your work, your digital marketing work? Is it yet you are watching closely? How do you see, how does another agency or a marketing expert look at this stuff?
Yeah, so we certainly monitor it all, right? Like that's our job. That's why you hire us, so that we can keep an eye on it. I guess we're fortunate as well because Pico is a Google Premier partner, so we do get access to new opportunities and betas that are not out there for the masses yet. And we have an opportunity to feedback to Google on what that experience is like, how it's performing for our clients, that kind of thing. So we stay on top of the cusp, but at the same time, it's really, for us, I mean, our customers drive it, and our budget drives it. So you can imagine like, smaller marketers that just don't, they're not your, Discover Cards of the world or your American Expresses, and they've got like this, close to like unlimited funds for branding. The clients that we work with, I mean, they're going to stick with what's actually generating them conversions. And they're going to, will they test certain things out? Like I said to you earlier, I do believe in people having a test budget for these things. But not everybody has that budget. Not everybody has that availability, which is, but at the same time, sooner or later, our audience is going to force us in that direction anyway. So if you had, clients back in the day where they're like, oh, I'll get to mobile when I get to mobile, they're dead in the water now, right? They're behind the curve. So you've got to stay with what's happening, out there in the market, not just what's happening from a technology standpoint, because it's about adoption of that technology, which is more important than anything else.
Absolutely, absolutely. Even it's a very different feeling when you read something on a desktop, even if it's a smaller, not a laptop, than looking at everything on a mobile phone, however big the screen is. It's a totally different screen. Be that as it may, Samantha, how do people connect with you, especially potential clients who are not as big as Boeing, Avalon Waterways, and Alteryx, but but still the same, they want to connect with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, they can find me on LinkedIn. I also, choosepico.com is one of my websites. I also have samanthebedford.com. So feel free to reach out there. My email address, if you want it, it's sam@choosepico.com. So feel free. I'm pretty much an open book. I love to sort of help people out, and for me, it's always about just making the landscape a better place. As I say, there's times I get onto, I'll open up an email and I'm like, oh, you shouldn't have maybe approached it that way, that kind of thing. And I love to just sort of be a person that someone can just, chat to and get some advice from. If they want to use Pico to help them build their brand and get some exposure and get some leads or sales in, we're there for you. As much as I've worked with some large brands out there in the marketplace, like you've just mentioned, worked with some pretty big ones. At the same time, the fun part for me is working with someone they're doing some Google ads, but they're not quite happy with the results that are happening right now. Or they're not quite happy with their current agency or in-house person maybe. And they think that they could do better. And I mean, for me, I wake up in the morning and that's what gets me going, right? I wake up and I'm like, I can work with this company. I know that every penny counts for them. And I get to see them succeed. And nothing can beat that. Nothing.
Right.
Other than maybe my kid getting an A on an assignment.
Obviously, family
Yes.
comes first, and that cannot be
Yes,
compared with,
absolutely.
that
Which
cannot
he
be
just
compared
did
with
today. I'm
anything.
so proud of my kid. He just got a great result on his math test. So I'm happy for him. Very proud
Wonderful,
of him. Yes.
wonderful, wonderful. My last question to you, Samantha, is that from South Africa to Denver, Colorado,
Yeah.
to Scotland, managing your business back in the US, so many things now. So many things are happening. You are leading perhaps the way you wanted to. Now, what is your next destination? What is it that you seek now
Oh,
at this time?
I have no idea. Honestly, I have no idea. I love the fact that we're in Scotland because, just being able to travel to like, Europe, Scandinavia, like just being able to travel to all these places is just so much easier. So I don't know. I've got a bit of a soft spot right now for Spain, Barcelona. Who knows? Who knows? I'm trying to stay stable for a little bit just for my kid for school. But outside of that, yeah. I mean, I just love to travel. Last year we were in Spain, we were in Iceland, we were in Turkey. And God bless what's going over there right now. I mean, please donate and help out where you can. It's just, yeah, I mean, it's just fun to be able to go around and see all of these different cultures. I love it. Love it. And I just feel like it gives you so much more respect for the entire global community instead of just sitting, cooped up and you just know what's going on down the road from you, kind of thing. I just think it gives you, I also love the fact as well, I guess, that like I see like these digital campaigns when I'm in Spain, and I see banners and I see how people are advertising there. And then I can come back and I have like all of these amazing ideas of what I want to do for some of my clients. And I think that's, like that's something that just like it adds to my passion, as you can tell from this entire conversation, for digital advertising is, it just adds to that. It just adds for me to have those kind of experiences and then, develop new experiences for my clients based on those. So, yeah. But the sky's the limit. What do you know what? That's my answer. I'm going to go to Mars.
Right. But right now, the fact is that
I'm going to open the first digital advertising agency in Mars.
Right. Absolutely. That will be needed. But at the moment, Mr. Elon Musk is much more busy dealing with Twitter, blue line, and all that
Oh
stuff.
my gosh. Yeah.
Yes. So maybe before going to opening a advertising agency in Mars, he may certainly can do with some bit of better advice, much more digital advice from an expert like you. I'm sure that will bring solace to a lot of advertising agencies, a lot of brands, and also to the man himself. Whatever be that case, it was lovely talking to you.
Thank you for having me. It was so much fun. I had such a great time. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. On this note, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.